You ever notice how some things in your house feel off? Like a creaking step that wasn't there yesterday. A door that suddenly doesn't close the way it used to. You brush it off, right? Houses settle, floors warp, time wears things down. That's what we told ourselves until the night our house grew a new floor, not an attic. Not a basement, a full-blown, extra level. Out of nowhere. No construction, no renovations, just. There. One day, we woke up, and it existed. It started on a Tuesday. My wife, Emily, was getting the kids ready for school. I was late for work, fumbling for my keys, when our youngest, Max, pointed up the staircase and said, "What's up there?" "What do you mean?" I asked. "The new stairs," he said, matter-of-factly. "The ones that go all the way up now." I paused. The staircase in our house had always ended at the second floor, 3 bedrooms and a bathroom. We'd lived here for over a decade, but when I looked, Max was right. The stairs didn't stop at the second floor landing. They kept going up, into a shadowed space that shouldn't have existed. Emily looked at me, confused. "Did you call a contractor or something? Is this some kind of project surprise?" I shook my head slowly. "No, I didn't. Did you?" But she hadn't either. We stood there, staring at the stairs. They were the same wood as the rest of the house. Same grain, same worn polish, like they'd always been there. But we knew, both of us knew, they hadn't. I took the first step. The wood creaked under my weight, groaning like it didn't want me there. Each step felt colder. By the time I reached the top, the air was 10 degrees cooler. The hallway was narrow. The wallpaper looked old. Yellowed, curled at the edges like it hadn't been touched in half a century. There were 4 doors, each identical, closed. I tried the first one, locked. The second, locked. The third, it creaked open. Inside was a child's bedroom, dust everywhere. The bed was made, but the sheets were moth-eaten. Toys were scattered across the floor. Not new toys, vintage ones. Tin robots, a wooden rocking horse, a porcelain doll sitting on a chair, her eyes looking directly at the door like she'd been waiting. I backed out, closed the door, and went to the last one. It opened easily. This room was empty, no furniture, just a single window and an old mirror hanging on the opposite wall, but there was no reflection in the mirror, not mine. Not the room's, nothing, just black. I didn't tell Emily everything, just said it was dusty. Maybe some kind of old storage space no one told us about. We decided to call someone, an inspector, maybe the realtor, but the day got ahead of us. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the mirror, about how wrong it felt. At 2:43 a.m., I got up. Something was pulling me. Like the house was whispering, the stairs creaked louder at night. The air was colder, but I wasn't alone. At the top of the stairs, the hallway was different, the wallpaper gone. Now it was dark wood paneling, and the doors, there were only 3 now. Not 4. The child's bedroom gone, the empty room different. This time, when I opened it, the mirror was broken, shattered across the floor. And in its place was writing on the wall, scratched into the paint with something sharp. It said, "You should not be here." I ran back downstairs, locked the door behind me, slept in the living room with the lights on. The next morning, Emily asked if I'd been upstairs again. I didn't answer because before I could, Max came down and said, "The new floor's smaller now." I asked what he meant. He just shrugged. "One of the rooms is gone." Emily and I stared at each other in silence. That day, we did everything we could to rationalize it. We called our realtor. She insisted the house had always had 2 floors. The original listing, only 2 stories. We checked the paperwork. She was right, but the floor was there. We could see it, touch it, walk through it. Our neighbors swore the house hadn't changed. But when I asked our next-door neighbor, Mrs. Olden, if she remembered ever seeing that 3rd set of windows, she paused. "I don't think so," she muttered, "but I'm not really looking up much these days." That night, the stairs groaned even when no one was on them. The temperature upstairs dropped low enough to fog the windows. Emily swore she heard whispering. I did too, but I pretended I didn't. I didn't want her to panic. On the third night, I brought my phone. Set it to record. I walked through the hallway, now narrower, more crooked. One door, now just one. It opened on its own. Inside was a nursery, not a child's bedroom. A nursery, crib, mobile, rocking chair. A rattle on the floor. And a figure in the corner. Standing completely still. It was small, pale, no face. I dropped my phone. By the time I scrambled to pick it up and looked again, empty room. Gone. I ran. Didn't stop until I was back in our bed, holding Emily so tightly she woke up. When I checked the footage the next morning. Nothing. No extra floor. No hallway, just a video of me standing in a white void. That was the day we tried to leave the house. Packed the kids into the car. Started driving. Made it 5 blocks before we hit fog. Thick, dense, impossible fog that wasn't there seconds before. GPS failed, roads looped back. We tried 6 times. Every time we ended up in front of our own house. It was like it didn't want us to leave, and that night there were 2 doors again, one open, one closed. The open one showed our kitchen exactly as it was. But from the night before, like a replay, we could see ourselves on the couch, watching TV, and then the lights flickered in the room and something walked behind us. Something we never noticed at the time, but it was watching. Waiting. The next morning, I didn't go to work. Emily kept the kids home from school. We sat in the living room in silence, each of us glancing at the ceiling as though we could feel the weight of that floor pressing down on us. Max asked, "Is someone living up there?" Emily said no. I didn't say anything. By noon, the air in the house had changed, heavier, denser, like we were underwater. Even the light through the windows looked different, dimmer, filtered through something we couldn't see. That afternoon, we brought in a contractor, a guy named Joel. We told him we were thinking of renovating the attic just to see what he'd say. He climbed the stairs. We waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Then 30. Finally, I called up. "Joel, you okay?" "No." Answer. I took a step onto the stairs. That cold feeling hit instantly, but this time it was worse. It felt like walking into a freezer. My breath fogged. The top floor was different again. Now there were no doors. Just a long hallway that shouldn't have fit in the house. The wallpaper was now red and peeling. The floorboards bowed inward, like something had been dragging heavy weight across them. I called his name again. Still nothing. I walked, step by step, further down the hallway. The air buzzed like a distant static in my ears. Then I saw it. Joel's toolbox. Open, scattered. One of the screwdrivers snapped in half. No blood. No sign of Joel. Just a single note lying beside it. "Don't fix what was never yours." I grabbed the note and bolted. I didn't look back when I got downstairs. Emily could see it in my face. I didn't need to say a word. Joel's van stayed parked in our driveway for 3 days. Then one morning, it was gone. No sign of him, no call, no invoice. When we called the company, they said Joel hadn't worked there in months. That night, we heard crying. It wasn't the kids. They were asleep in our room, door locked. The sound was faint at first, but persistent. A baby somewhere above us, soft, wailing, rocking back and forth like it was caught in an endless loop. Emily curled up beside me. I didn't sleep, neither did she. At 3:14 a.m., something knocked on our bedroom door. Once, twice, 3 times. Slow, deliberate. We didn't answer, and then the knob turned. It didn't open, just rattled gently, like someone testing the lock, like they wanted us to know they were there. We moved a dresser in front of the door after that. But it didn't help. The next day, we called the police. We didn't know what to even report. An extra floor appeared in our home. Didn't sound like something they'd write down. So we told them we heard someone living in the attic. Noises, footsteps, 2 officers came by. Walked to the house. When they reached the staircase, I saw one of them hesitate. You said there's 3 floors. He asked. I nodded. He turned to his partner, who looked confused. That wasn't in the notes. Says here this is a 2-story property. The other officer checked again. Yeah. 2. No attic. They both went upstairs anyway, and this time I followed. The 3rd floor looked completely different. Now it was an old library. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. Dust floating in the air like snow, a fireplace that hadn't been lit in years. And in the center of the room, a desk, on it an open journal. The officers didn't see any of it. They stood there, turning in circles. This is just insulation, one said. No sign of entry, nothing up here. I asked, you don't see the room. They looked at me like I was insane. I pointed to the journal right there. On the desk, they stared at the empty floor. There's nothing there, sir. I walked over and picked it up, held it out to them. But in my hands it was gone. Nothing. Just air. Later that night, I checked the room again. Now it was empty. Only the walls remained, but the floor creaked as I stepped, like someone had just walked there seconds before. That night, I read to Max before bed. His eyes looked tired, darker than usual, he said. They told me not to come back up there. I froze. Who told you? He shrugged. The boy. What boy? The one in the hallway. He's sad, he said. The rooms change because of him. I sat beside him, heartbeat hammering in my chest. Did he say anything else? He said he's trapped. And that you're next. I didn't sleep at all. Instead, I went back to the 3rd floor around 4 a.m. Now it was different again. A long dining room, a chandelier above. A feast set on the table, but all the food was rotten. Flies buzzed in thick clouds. The chairs were filled with mannequins dressed in formal wear, heads tilted toward the ceiling. At the far end sat a boy. Pale, dark eyes, no whites in them. He stared at me. You brought the house back, he whispered. I shook my head. I didn't do anything. You remembered it. That's enough. And then he vanished, just blinked. Out like smoke, but the house laughed. The walls shook, the chandelier swayed. Plates shattered on the floor without anyone touching them. I ran again. That morning, Emily said something terrifying. She said, do you remember when we bought this house? I said, yeah, of course, 7 years ago, but her eyes stayed on mine. Do you remember why it was so cheap? I tried to think. Nothing. No memory. Just blank. We checked the records again. The deed said we bought it in 2016, but there were no sale records before that. Nothing before us, no previous owners, no permits, no tax history. It was like the house had just appeared out of nowhere, and that's when I started researching. Old blueprints, city archives, any trace of this property before us. And then I found it. In a news clipping dated 1973, local family vanishes in unfinished house on Larchwood Drive. Investigation abandoned. That was our address. The photo showed the same house, same porch, same cracked sidewalk, but the house was listed as abandoned. Never finished, the article said. Left to rot, but I was standing inside it. Living in it, with my wife and kids, and a 3rd floor that kept changing every night. Something was wrong, something wasn't real, or worse, something was too real. That night, I didn't go back upstairs. I couldn't, but the house didn't care because now the 3rd floor came down to us. It started with the hallway. At exactly 3:13 a.m., the lights flickered in the kitchen. A slow, rhythmic creak echoed from above, like someone pacing. Then silence. When I opened the basement door to check the breaker box, there it was. Another door on a wall that had been solid concrete for years. A black wooden door with an antique knob, no frame. No seams. Just waiting. I didn't open it. I didn't need to, because at 3:33 a.m. we heard footsteps coming out of it. Soft, barefoot, careful. Emily and I sat in the living room, frozen, the kids asleep on the couch beside us. We didn't move. The footsteps stopped. We didn't turn around. We couldn't. We just waited until the sun rose. When I finally turned, the door was gone. The wall was concrete again, but there was something new, scratched into the floor just behind the couch. A single word carved in deep, jagged letters. Remember. Emily and I started writing everything down. Every change, every sound, every room. We kept a journal. Not for us, because we were already forgetting things. Days blurred together, time skipped. Conversations disappeared, but the journal stayed the same, like it was immune to the house, until one morning we opened it and the handwriting wasn't ours. Whole pages, filled with text we'd never written, descriptions of rooms we'd never seen, the drowned room, the clock hall, the whispering garden. Each entry ended the same way: you were here, you will be here again. I started seeing things in reflections. Not in mirrors. In windows. In the TV screen when it was off. In the dark glass of my phone. A figure, always at the edge of the frame, watching, waiting, but never there when I turned around. One night, I asked Emily something I hadn't dared before. What if we're not the first ones here? She said nothing. Then she whispered, what if we never left? The next night, Max disappeared, just vanished from the living room. We had all fallen asleep watching a movie. I woke up to silence, Emily still beside me. Our daughter, Lily, curled up with a blanket, but Max gone. We tore the house apart. Nothing. Then we heard his voice, faint, echoing from upstairs. Mom. Dad. It was coming from the third floor. But now, the stairs were gone. Just a wall, smooth, no seams, but the voice kept coming. Can you come get me? It's dark up here. Emily collapsed in the hallway, screaming. I punched the wall until my hands bled. And then we saw it, the mirror. Back again, leaning against the wall, only this time it reflected the third floor. The hallway, the doors. And Max, standing alone in front of the door at the very end. He looked at us through the mirror. Smiled weakly. I think I found the boy, he said. He's nice. Emily reached out to the mirror and her fingers went through. Like water. She screamed. We held each other all night, shaking, watching our son stand in a place we couldn't reach. A place we weren't sure even existed. In the morning, he was gone from the mirror, but now it showed us. Sleeping. Watching. Everywhere we moved. The mirror changed. Always one step behind. Like it was watching a few seconds late, until one day it started showing things before they happened. First, just subtle things. A flicker of a movement, a dropped glass. A blink too early. Then it got worse. It showed Emily standing behind me with a knife. It showed me alone, crying in the hallway. It showed Lily whispering to something in the closet. We stopped looking into it, but it was always there. Every wall we patched. Every room we tried to block off. It moved. We tried burning it. It didn't melt. We left it in the woods. It came back. One night, Lily said something that broke me. She said, Max says he's not allowed to leave until one of us takes his place. I asked, you saw him? She nodded. He said the rooms change because we remember them wrong. I didn't know what that meant, but then I started noticing it too. Photos on our walls slightly different, poses that never happened, faces unfamiliar, people who looked like us but weren't quite right. Our wedding photo now had a third figure in the background. Old family pictures showed a child we didn't recognize, and in every single one, there was a tall, faceless man in the distance. Always watching. Emily tried to take Lily and run. She made it to blocks before blacked out windows and boarded up homes blocked every street. Every house now looked like ours. Same porch, same stairs. Same peeling paint, clones, like the neighborhood had replicated into a looping prison. We weren't just trapped, we were being replaced. The final straw came the night Emily disappeared. I heard her scream, ran into the hallway. The mirror showed her running, panicked, in the third floor hallway. A door opened on its own. She turned to me, reaching out through the glass, and then the door slammed shut behind her. She hasn't come back. I stopped eating. Stopped sleeping. I don't know how many days have passed. Sometimes it rains ash. Sometimes the clocks run backward. I found Max's voice recorder under the bed. The last entry said, "The boy said you'd forget me, but you didn't. Not yet. I'm proud of you. I still hear them. Sometimes. Emily. Max. Even Joel." Voices echoing behind the walls. Trapped in rooms I can't find anymore. And me. I'm starting to forget what my real house looked like, what my life was like before this. If there even was a before, because the house has a rule. If you remember it, it returns. If you forget, it replaces you, and I think I'm already gone. Sometimes I wonder if this house ever really had a beginning, if it was ever built in the first place, or if it just appeared, waiting for someone to step inside, to remember it into existence, because the more I think back, the less I understand how we ended up here. The open house, the realtor's name, the drive to Larchwood Drive, all of it feels scripted, like someone else's memories stitched into my head. And now, I can't tell what's real anymore. The third floor is back, but this time it's not above us. It's inside us. The layout of the house changes during the day now. Doors connect to rooms that shouldn't exist. Hallways stretch longer than they did before. Sometimes you open a door and find yourself standing outside, in a place that's almost familiar. Almost. I found a room yesterday that smelled like my father's garage. He died when I was a teenager. There was a note on the workbench in his handwriting. It said, "You're getting close. Don't stop now." But close to what? The house isn't just a house. It's a memory machine. It feeds on the things we forget and twists the things we try to hold on to. The third floor isn't random. It's our guilt. Our fear, our secrets. Each room we step into is a mirror we're not ready to face. Emily once told me that trauma lives in walls, that some places absorb what happens inside them. But what if some places don't just absorb pain? What if they become it? What if every house like this, every haunted home, every cursed location was never meant to be a place at all? What if they're traps, echoes of regret, waiting to be remembered, because once you remember them, they remember you back, and they don't let go? I've been thinking about Max's words. The boy said the rooms change because we remember them. Wrong, and I think I understand now. The house can't lie to us. It can only show us what we fear, what we repress, what we almost admit, and that's why it punishes us for remembering, because once we accept the truth, the illusion breaks. The problem is, the truth is worse than the illusion. The truth is, we died here, years ago, that third floor. It's not new. It's old. It's always been there. We were just never ready to see it. The house waited for us to remember the night of the fire. The faulty wiring, the smoke, the screams. The door we couldn't open in time, the hands that never reached us. We remembered too late, and the house kept us. Now we're echoes, living shadows, reliving memories that are too heavy to carry, too cruel to face. That's why the doors keep changing. Why the rooms rot, or freeze, or whisper. Because they're shaped by our pain. The third floor isn't cursed. It's consequence. Every time you forget what happened, it resets. Every time you get close, it punishes you for knowing. And now I'm alone. I think Emily's gone for good. I don't hear her voice anymore. Just silence. I still see Max sometimes, in mirrors, in reflections. I think he's trying to help me, or maybe I'm just remembering what it felt like to be a father. To have something worth saving, and that brings me to you, because if you're still listening, if you've made it this far, it means you've felt something, that itch in your memory, that part of your house that never quite made sense, a hallway that doesn't align, a cold room no one uses, a door that locks on its own, a light that flickers in rhythm, not randomness. Maybe you've brushed it off. Maybe you told yourself it was nothing, but what if it wasn't? What if the house is just waiting Not to be haunted, but to be remembered, because the more you ignore it, the stronger it grows, and the second you let your guard down, it adds another floor, another room, another memory. Maybe you've already been there. Maybe you've stood at the top of those stairs in a dream, heart pounding. Maybe you've seen that mirror in the corner of your eye just before waking. Maybe you're already part of it and you just haven't remembered yet. That's how it starts, with a whisper behind the wall, a flicker in the glass, a memory that doesn't belong to you, and one day you'll wake up, and the stairs will go a little higher than they used to, a floor that was never there before, but now. It's always been there. Waiting, watching, replacing. So the next time you hear a noise upstairs, don't go looking for it, because some doors, once opened, never close, and some houses remember you more than you remember them. Subscribe while you still can.